have one new message. Translating. Disney and Pixar's Hoppers is now available on Disney+.
You could say that again.
Critics are calling it Pixar's funniest movie ever and a wildly entertaining ride. Blizzard Potato. It's certified fresh and verified hot.
Now we party.
This is incredible!
Wow, I am clearing the rest of the day.
Disney and Pixar's Hoppers, now available on Disney+. Rated PG.
Rich Harwood was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis in the 60s. Doctors told his parents that he had 3 to 5 years to live. So he grew up in hospital beds, learning early what it felt like to be unseen, and making a decision at 8 years old that would quietly shape everything that came after. Nearly 40 years ago, he started the Harwood Institute for Public Innovation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping communities come together across divides. The line from that sick little boy watching a clock tick through the night to the work he does today is not a straight one, but it is a direct one.
When I was 8, I made the decision to stop calling my parents to come in to help me when I was sick, because I felt like they were hurting me more than they were helping me, and it was hurting them too much for me to bear. And I decided, it's also when I discovered God, and it's also that I believed that I was going to have to get up and get going and make this work.
You're listening to the Life Shift Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Gilhooly. This show is built around one simple idea, that sometimes a single moment can change how we see everything. Each week, I talk with someone about the moment that shifted their life and how they learned to live differently after it. These are not stories about having it all figured out. They are stories about what it looks like to keep going once the story changes. Thank you for being here. Here's today's story. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Life Shift Podcast. I am here with Rich today. Hello, Rich.
Hey, Matt, good to be with you.
Well, thank you for wanting to be a part of the Life Shift Podcast and kind of dig into the human experience in the way that you experienced it. I think it's just been such a journey for me, a stranger to so many of the people on this show, to be able to sit down and ask the curious questions and understand someone at a deeper level that I may never have crossed paths with in my life. And so it's just been such a beautiful journey, and I'm so grateful that you wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Well, so am I. Before we get into it, though, maybe you can tell us who Rich is in 2026. Like, how do you show up in the world? How do you identify these days? Like, who is Rich?
I'm a husband of 38 years. I'm a father of 2 grown children. I'm a grandfather of a 3-year-old and just a matter of days ago, a newborn. So I now have 2 grandchildren. I am a person of faith, which is very important to me. I love to exercise. I love to read. And I head up, my calling probably is the best way to put it. My calling in life is to help lead an organization called the Harwood Institute for Public Innovation, which in shorthand is about, so this has been going on almost 40 years now. I started when I was 27. Everyone told me not to do it, but it's maybe a story we'll get into. But, I'm really interested and moved by and animated by how do we bridge divides at a time when our country seems to be splitting further and further apart? How do we create a culture of shared responsibility in communities and in our society when the notion of things that we share is often taboo and the notion of responsibility is something we often look askance at? And how do we create communities that are a common enterprise where we're pulling in a common direction, marshaling our common resources, having common goals? And where community, I intentionally chose the word community because to me, community means everyone who's there. All means all. And I think we like to say that in our society today, but we don't necessarily act on it. And there are all sorts of things that impede our ability to do that. And so, our work has now spread to 50 states and 40 countries, and it continues to spread. And, the last thing I'll say about this, at least for now, is that the greatest joy I get from that calling is seeing people have the opportunity to fulfill their God-given potential and individually and with others shape their future. And I can't think of anything more important, at least for me, to be doing right now.
I mean, living a life of service, it seems. And
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, man, I never use that word, although, people have said that. To me, this is kind of like a fight.
yeah,
It's a battle. It's there, as you know, and as your listeners know, there are so many things that have undermined our belief in institutions, have undermined our belief in leaders, have undermined our belief in the news media, have undermined our belief in faith institutions, have undermined our belief in one another, and unfortunately have caused us to doubt ourselves many times. And those forces are real, they're powerful, they're unrelenting at times. And so for me, this is about how do we come together and create a counterforce to those, what I would say, unhealthy forces, so that society looks more like the best parts of us, not the worst parts of us.
it's a lofty goal.
Yeah, that we are actually living out, upholding one another's dignity, regardless of our identity, our sexual orientation, the color of our skin, the native language we speak, what side of town we live on, what kind of car we drive, how much money we have in our bank account, all those things. Where in a particular city we live or county, they shouldn't matter. And they do. And so to me, this really has been sort of an upward climb, and it's something that really motivates me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's beautiful, and what you're putting into the world is, I mean, you're definitely in service. I mean, if you didn't show up, like if you didn't put this out here, would other people be doing it? And the ripple effect, that must be immense and probably really exciting to see.
It's funny that you say the ripple effect, because in our work, we have reports called Ripples of Change. And in our work, what we're trying to do is to help people discover what really matters to other people and to catalyze and unleash a chain reaction that typically starts small, but takes root and grows and spreads like a positive contagion over time. What results from that is a ripple effect. And so if you look at, for instance, people can go to our website for this, but if you look at our work in Alamance County, North Carolina, or Reading, Pennsylvania, which was declared the poorest community in America 10 years ago, or 2 counties in Ohio, which are in Jim Jordan's congressional district, the co-founder of the Freedom Caucus, on it goes. People have come together, not for kumbaya moments, though they do get joy. This is a kind of civic joy, to really focus on what matters to people and to strengthen our civic culture so that we can actually come together and get stuff done and restore our belief in ourselves and one another, that as Americans, not as Republicans, Democrats, or independents, but as Americans, we can do this. And the good news is people are doing it.
Yeah. And to me, the cynic in me is like, ooh, 2026, 2025 is probably harder than a lot of the years over the last 40 years that you've been doing this. There were probably some periods that were maybe not easier, but a little bit more palatable, or felt like it wasn't as much work to do. And it seems like nowadays it might be even more intense.
It's interesting that every 5 years or so, I've kind of gone on a walk, gone across the country to engage people really deeply. This is in addition to our work in communities, but to engage people really deeply about how they see their lives, how they see the country, where they think things are going. And it's really interesting. The first report I did was in 1990, right before the Gulf War. And we pulled it off the printing press because the Gulf War broke out and patriotism went sky high and everything else. And we redid it and we found the same results, even deeper, which was people were mad as hell about politics. They felt as though someone had come into their house and taken over politics. And they were mad at politicians, the news media, special interests. I won't take you through every 5-year walk. I'll simply say, if you fast forward to a report we did not too long ago, it wasn't about politics. This goes to your point about the work being tougher and deeper. It was about our relationships to one another. It was about the very culture in which we live in. It was about being overridden by consumerism and technology and all of these things in a fragmented news landscape. Essentially, what people were telling us is they felt like they had lost control, not of politics. They felt like they had lost control of their lives of their communities and of this country, that's a much deeper, more profound sense of things and feeling about things.
Yeah, that's challenging. And again, I commend you for your work. I think it's really important and very much needed, especially now. And part of me wonders, and kind of I know a little bit of your early story, but part of me wonders if people like you exist because of things that happen to them. You know, for me, this podcast would not exist had I not lost my mom suddenly and then struggled in a big heaping pile of mess for 20 years to grieve. I wouldn't be doing this. So I'm curious, maybe you can kind of take us back and paint the picture of your life, because my sinking suspicion is that, you know, some of those things may have impacted how you see the world now.
Yeah. First, let me just say that, you know, a loss like a mom when you're 8 years old never goes away. And so I'm just sorry for your loss and the continued pain that I'm sure it causes you. For me, you know, when I was born, I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, which in 1960 was a death sentence. My parents were told that I had 3 to 5 years to live. My family went on a death watch. The doctors at one point turned to my mom and said, "Face it, he's a lemon." That's a label I've never been able to fully shake off. I grew up in hospital beds throughout my youth and then into my adulthood. And, you know, what I experienced and what I took from that was that I experienced a healthcare system that was supposed to help heal me, chew me up and spit me out repeatedly. I was manhandled repeatedly. As a young kid, that's very difficult. I have vivid memories starting at a very early age of doctors and nurses surrounding my hospital bed, all talking about me, but never talking with me. I learned very early on what it feels like to be stripped of one's dignity. I was violated repeatedly. I learned really early on what it feels like to not be seen and heard, to be invisible. And at a really young age, I learned what it feels like to struggle for not only a sense of survival, which I did struggle for, but a sense of hope, because that tomorrow could be better than today. And because for me, for so much of my early years, tomorrow was worse than yesterday. There was more terror, there was more fear, there were more hallucinations, there were more persistent hundreds.
So physically, it was worse every day.
Yeah.
But also the people around you were
worse,
seemingly worse as well.
Yeah, seemingly worse. And, you know, my parents, God bless them, they, you know, this took me a long time to see really. They were overwhelmed. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the resources. My father's working 16, 17-hour days as a young lawyer trying to start a practice in New York City. He didn't have any money. My mom had 3 kids at home. They were stretched financially. They were stretched emotionally. And they did everything in their power to support me. The challenge was that they couldn't give me what I needed most, which was a sense of security, a sense of safety, a sense of unconditional love. You know, when I got sick, which was often, you know, my mom would come into my bedroom because she was always the first one, and she would look at me and I'd be a mess, and she would turn away and say to my dad, who was not far behind her, "He's sick again." And then she'd walk out. And for a young child, that inculcates a sense of shame that's very hard to shake. And then my dad would come in, and again, to his credit, he wanted to fix me. And so he would tell me, "You're not that sick. You're going to, you know, I would have massive dry heaves and hallucinations and a high fever at the same time. And so he almost treated me as if it wasn't happening at times, and clinically, when in fact, I just needed someone to hug me.
Right.
And to get in bed beside me. So, you know, it was a long answer to a short question, but, you know, I'm sure you and your listeners, you know, there's a direct line from these experiences as a kid, and then people who helped me along the way and what I learned along the way. There's a direct line from those experiences to what I do each and every day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about these experiences, that aren't affected by them, that I'm not reminded of them. And, you know, it's what animates me every day.
It is, but I also think of these things of like anyone that's been through a trauma. I mean, yours was just an enduring trauma. Like it was not a one and done kind of feeling. I don't want to compare, but like for me, it was like rip the Band-Aid off and now what? For you, it was like rip the Band-Aid off every day and see what tomorrow brings. And I'm sure you've looked back and your parents were probably doing the best they knew how to do and trying. They were probably lost in a sea of who knows what. I think of, my dad as well. And in my experience, like he was young. He thought he wasn't going to have to raise me, like, and all of a sudden he had to. But people that have gone through this and something that you have, and you survived it, which is, or you've made it to this age through all that, but you could have not done what you're doing now. You could have kept the cynicism, the anger, you could have just used that, like a victim mentality that some of us like to try on every once in a while to make us feel better. So, I mean, there is something about the spirit that you have, which it's probably part of your story, how you gained that spirit, but there's so many people that have gone through these things that don't take that and turn it into good.
Before we started this, we were talking about what time I wake up in the morning, and
4:30.
4:30, yeah. And when I was sick, one of the ways in which I would get through the night was I had a dial clock back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And I literally would watch the second hand. I would become go into a trance so that everything would be still. And I would watch the second hand go second by second. Then I'd watch it go the minute pass. Then I'd watch 5 minutes pass. Then I'd watch an hour. That's how I got through every night. And I would be awake all night. And what I came to learn, or experienced probably, is when it became 4:20, I realized that the next day was going to start. And sometimes that was because I saw the light coming up. Sometimes it was because of the color of the streetlights through my bedroom windows. But at 4:20, I would always breathe a sigh of relief. And this still happens today. I'm 65 years old. I'm still doing this. And I would say to myself, today's a new day. Today's another chance. Today's another opportunity. And I would get up out of bed. I would get dressed, and I would get in motion. And I believed then, I still, I've carried this belief through my life, that good things happen when you're in motion, and that laying in a bed, feeling like you're a victim or feeling sorry for yourself wasn't going to get me anywhere. And no one gave a shit.
Yeah.
No one cared. No one talked to me ever about being sick. To this day, my parents have barely spoken. My father's now deceased, but have barely spoken to me. It's not a topic that we talk about. So I learned really early on. And in fact, you said that when you were 8, your mom passed away. When I was 8, I made the decision, and I remember this, Matt, vividly. I made the decision to stop calling my parents to come in to help me when I was sick, because I felt like they were hurting me more than they were helping me, and it was hurting them too much for me to bear.
Like a disappointment for you?
I'm sorry?
They were disappointing you because they weren't showing up in the way that you needed them?
I wasn't getting what I needed, but more than that, I felt like I was stretching them even farther, that I was hurting them even more, that they didn't know what to do. Why should I keep calling them? It doesn't help them. I felt enormous shame about calling them continually. And so in that moment, when I was 8, it's both when I discovered God, and it's also first when I stopped calling. It's also when I discovered God. And it's also that I believed, I was going to say realized, but really believed that I was going to have to get up and get going and make this work. And that still, if you talk to the people on my team, I was talking to my chief of staff today for the longest time, and We sort of got into a little of stuff about how I operate. And it still drives me to this day. It's like, get up. What can we make of this situation? There's always something you can make of it.
I mean, I commend you. As a kid, you took the harder road. Like, I feel like it's so much easier to just stay in bed. Like, you made the decision. As someone that has been through depressive stages in my life, it was so much easier to stay in that terrible headspace than it was to like do something about it and get in motion. So kudos to that young version of you who was already fighting enough with the health system and the healthcare system. And now you're like, well, no, I'm going to make it even better, or I'm going to make my life even better despite all those other things.
The new LinkedIn Hiring Pro can't clone you, but it can streamline your hiring workflow. From posting jobs to shortlisting candidates to interviewing, LinkedIn Hiring Pro is the hiring partner you need, so you can focus on connecting with the right talent. In fact, small businesses report saving over 6 hours per week. So hire right the first time with LinkedIn Hiring Pro. Post a free job today at linkedin.com/quality.
Yeah. And, there were people along the way who helped me.
Well, that's
right.
good.
I was really fortunate.
But you were open to it.
I was open to it up to a point.
Okay.
I was open to it up to a point. I think when I look back on there are so many people, Matt.
Yeah.
Like I've started to list them because I just wanted to recognize them for all the good they did, for all the love they gave me.
And the ripples they created.
And all they taught me about myself and about the world and about people. And whether it was as a young kid when I was 8, 9, 10, or when I got into high school or when I was in college or graduate school or after, there are all these people, for whatever reason for them, they put their arm around me and they supported me. Now, because of what I went through, my levels of trust were not high. My willingness to open up was not great. My fear of being, as you said, I experienced repeated chronic trauma over many, many years. I was on high alert. I was on high alert for pretty much my entire life that someone's going to hurt me. I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to have to experience more pain. I can't take any more pain. So that prevented me from really allowing a lot of people into my life in a way that I wish I could have, but I understand that I wasn't able to. I just wasn't able to do it.
You were protecting yourself. I mean, we all have that in some way, but it seems like you did let the light, like, was there I know you've mentioned multiple mentors and stuff. Do you think of one as more pivotal than the other, or is it yeah? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there are many, and
we won't rank them. We'll just say how this particular moment.
Let me talk about the first one.
Yeah.
You asked me about the moment that was a turning point. Let me talk about the mentor who was at the first turning point as a mentor.
I love that.
Yeah. So it was a man named Mr. Rivers. He had a seasonal job at the time. I grew up in New York City, and then we moved to upstate New York. 3 blocks from my house was the oldest thoroughbred racetrack in America, Saratoga Racecourse. Mr. Rivers, at that time, drove the tractor around the race course after each race to smooth out the dirt so that the next race could happen. That was his job. And he had, 4 or 5 kids. Danny was my age. And I'll try to give you the really short version of this. Mr. Rivers, when I was 8, I started playing basketball, what's called biddy basketball. And Mr. Rivers, I tried out. Mr. Rivers drafted me. And first of all, and I should say, he's the first person who taught me about hope, that it was okay to hope, that as a young kid who had these ailments, I could exert myself physically and good things would happen. And so he drafted me. I'm Jewish. My parents insisted, luckily, that I go to religious school on Saturday. All our games were on Saturday. Mr. Rivers went to all of his fellow coaches who were his drinking buddies they'd never met a Jew before. He had never met a Jew before. There are hardly any Jews in our town. And he got them to change every time of our games so I could play. Now, I've coached youth sports for 35 years. I can't imagine any league doing that for any kid, but he did it. And he cheered me on, and he got me to exert myself. And he could see I had a lot of, as you said, a lot of spirit and a lot of fight in me. And he just kept encouraging that to manifest itself. And, you know, I could talk about him for the whole hour. One story after another, one thing after another that he did. And then he coached me for many years. And when after soccer practice in high school or basketball practice in high school, when I was playing with his son, Danny, he would, this is before seatbelt laws, he would pick up 8 strapping boys, and in his beat up Chevrolet, the seats were back. It had a certain kind of odor to it. You know, the engine kind of revved in a certain kind of way. And we would all pile in on top of each other. And I swear to God, he had worked a full day. He was a laborer. And he took each kid home one by one. There were 8 of us in different parts of town. He would spend like an hour and a half doing this. And he would tell us things on the way and make sure that we were walking a straight line and make sure that we were doing the right thing and make sure that we were good friends to the other kids in the car, even though we didn't all like each other all the time. And when I think about the effort that went into that, the care that he gave to us, the arm he put around each of us, the fact that he did this night after night, he never missed a night. And if he did, Mrs. Rivers would pick us up. And that's a whole nother story. But, you know, in my faith, there is a teaching, if you save one life, you save the world. And I often wonder, I say this a lot in speeches, but I often wonder why they teach us that. And all religions have some similar teaching. And because if you save one life, you don't save the world. But if you save one life, what you're doing is you're putting a stake in the ground that someone else's humanity matters as much as your own, that you've turned outward towards someone and you see them and you hear them and you're affording them dignity that is their God-given right. It's not something you deserve. It's your right, in a sense, that you care enough about someone that you'll step forward toward them, even though they may be different from you, or you may not even like them, but you'll do it, that you'll go the extra mile for them. And, you know, I don't need to look very far to know the meaning of that teaching because Mr. Rivers saved me.
Yeah, he saw you.
People. But he saved me in so many ways. And I dedicated my first book to him. I used to go back and see him. I went to his funeral. I still see Danny at times when I go back home. And
he sounds like someone that stepped in at the right time and saw you and validated you as a human and introduced you to community and what
community is.
Yeah. And and that you can be in community with people that are not exactly like you, that you don't like all the time because you're a teenager or whatever that may be. And it sounded like he kind of, you said, introduced you to hope essentially, or helped you understand that. But just seeing what a quote unquote regular life could look like as well. And maybe you weren't seen as the sick kid or the needy one because, you know, you needed to go to the hospital or you needed to go, you know, and I'm sure that people had identified you as that for a while as well. But it sounds like this was the right person at the right time. Do you wonder why?
I think he was an angel, honestly. I really do. I you know, it's funny because you were asking me before that you could be a victim. And honestly, and this has been a long healing journey for me. This has not been easy by any stretch.
Yeah.
But in so many ways, when I think about Mr. Rivers or Mr. Petker, who came after him, or Mr. Brundage, who was my next door neighbor, or Gil Thalen, who I talk to every Sunday at 1:30, who has Parkinson's, was my mentor for so many years as an adult. He's about 20 years older than me. Honestly, I feel in so many ways like the luckiest person in the world. I got to live. I got to do all these things and meet all these people, and I get to put into play something I care so deeply about that brings purpose and meaning in my life. Like, what else could you, and I have this incredible family with these kids and grandkids and stuff. So what else could you want?
Yeah, well, there's a lot you could want, but what else do you need? And
Right.
you probably are creating the things around you now that you needed as a kid, like a lot of us do. I have a question of when these people showed up in your life, like Mr. Rivers and these others that you mentioned. Did that create a different feeling towards your own family because of what these people offered you? And this is totally the cynic in me asking that curious question.
You mean, did it make me more angry at
Did it make you feel differently about your parents or your siblings because you were creating this life and community with these other teenagers and Mr. Rivers?
Yeah, it's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. I think, honestly, I hate to say this, I think that I was in search of things in community that my family simply couldn't or wasn't able to provide. And, I don't think at all that it's an accident that I do the work I do. I mean, a lot of our work, I talk about moving from trauma and despair to healing and hope. Like, I was called into Newtown after the massacre there to help the community move forward, and I think because of the chaos in my family, because of people feeling so stretched, because there were people butting heads a lot, because things felt askew a lot, that my work, my relationships in community and my work now in community is about, can we create something that works better for all people? There were years when I was silent in my house. My mother jokes about it all the time. And
yeah, because you didn't want to ruffle any more feathers.
Right. I didn't want to create any more, wreak any more havoc, and I didn't want to disappoint anyone. And I didn't
Not
want
that you would have, but
I didn't want to ask for more. I thought I was already getting a lot. And, my wife and I have bent over backwards in our family now as we were raising our kids, now we're helping to raise our grandchildren, that we want to make sure there's enough space for everyone. But again, I might have not said this 20 years ago or 10 years ago, but today I would, that I am really grateful to my parents. There are a lot of things that didn't go right. My father was very, very, very tough on me outside of me being sick. And so that was a whole nother thing here. But I am really grateful. They inculcated us with really good values. I learned my faith from my parents. My parents were really active in our community. My mom started the first transition home when mental health patients were being deinstitutionalized in New York, and she put it in our neighborhood, of all places. That took guts. My father helped resuscitate the NAACP in our town. Over and over again, they did these. They started our local synagogue with 5 other families. So over and over again, they did remarkable things. They just couldn't manage this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it doesn't pull from the other things. They taught you the whole word of service. I mean,
absolutely.
They modeled that, and they just didn't have in my opinion, they probably just didn't have the tools, and they just didn't know what to do. I feel like growing up for me, the reason I asked that question is there were times in my teens when I would be at a friend's house who had like the full family, like the parents that my parents were divorced before my mom died. So I was living a different life, but I would go to these homes in which the parents had been married forever and the kid, and everything felt like Hallmark. And so it would make me look back at my own experience. And because I was still deep pushing down the grief, it made things worse for me because it just made me look like when I go home, this is what I'm going to. Not that my home life was bad or anything like that, but it just wasn't quote unquote normal. And it just made me more mad. And so that's why where that question came from, of like seeing someone essentially love you and the people around you as much as Mr. Rivers did and took care of you and cared about your safety, and except for the seatbelt thing, and and then take care of you and how you guys feel and work together. could bring up some emotions about when you do go home and it feels like, oh no, I'm home.
It's interesting. That's also a really good question. I didn't feel that, honestly. I think it's partly because first of all, I saw the good things in our family. There were many, some I just mentioned. It's interesting. My friends always told me they thought we had the perfect family. And it was because my parents, first of all, my brother, sister, and I all worked hard and did fairly well. I think the other thing is that my parents were known as being present when other kids would walk into our house. They were very attentive to them. And, honestly, I think when I talk to my mom now a little bit about this, she's like, you didn't need additional help. You seem to be doing just fine. I hid everything, right? I was really good at hiding a lot. So I think when I looked at other families, to your question, I didn't envy them or want that. I think I was more curious about like, geez, I wonder how their family works. I wonder what's going on in that house. They look perfect, to your point, but is that really what's going on? Like, I was curious, because I think what I've come to realize is that being sick and having to struggle and keep moving and everything was that I was always thinking about, well, what is someone else experiencing?
Right.
How are they experiencing life? How do they experience pitfalls and things that go wrong? Do they experience it as much as I do?
Yeah, maybe in different ways.
Yeah. And honestly, now in my work for all these years, it's kind of like I hate to say this, but it's kind of like a superpower because I'm so empathetic to other people's plight. I'm try to be so attuned to what they're experiencing and how this work that we do can help them gain greater confidence, help them feel seen and heard, help them realize that they have much more agency than they probably ever imagined.
So what was happening at 27 that you were like, let's make this bigger? Because you were probably in service of others doing things, but like what was the impetus to start your own thing? And then here we are 40 years later that you're still doing the good work or almost.
Yeah. I think it was a confluence of things. It was for sure being sick, which continued to sort of shape who I was. I think by the time I was 23, I'd worked on 20 political campaigns. The last one, I was an aide to a U.S. presidential candidate. Those campaigns, I liked many of the candidates. I despised the campaigns. It was back in the 80s. And I came to feel and believe that they sought to win at any cost. And no matter what they professed, and sometimes they did profess to care about people like Mr. Rivers or Mr. Brundage or Mr. Petka or someone like my mentor now who I talk to on Sundays. And I was enraged, honestly. I thought it was a bunch of bullshit, really. I don't know how else to put it. Like, I was enraged at what are we doing here? This is more destructive than helpful. So it's almost like a reminder of the healthcare system for me. And I was incredulous about it. So that was one thing. The second thing was I worked for a couple of nonprofits. And I believed at the time, I still believe today, that too many nonprofits live off of soft money, that they're not creating the impact they say they're creating, that too many people are unwilling to get dirt under the fingernails and do the heavy lifting that really needs to be done to help our society move forward. And
sounds like a politician.
Yeah, I was frustrated by that. And the third thing, which we've talked a little bit about, is, I was a person of faith. And my faith tells me I'm not whole unless I'm part of a larger community, that if you save one life, you save the world, that you are here on earth to take an imperfect world and try to make it more perfect to the extent that one can. That's our calling. It's called Tikkun Olam in Judaism. And those things really mattered to me. They still matter to me. So politics, nonprofits, my faith, my illness sort of conspired. And I came up with this idea when I was working on a presidential campaign. We were 20, 30 points behind at the time. And I had another mentor who helped me think about it. another guy, Carlos Galvez, and we would meet a bed, like an inn that had a place to eat. And it's where I courted my wife at the same place a number of years later, the Tabard Inn in Washington, D.C. And, honestly, every person I talked to, including my parents, told me not to do it and tried to talk me out of it. They said, you're not well known. You're just 27 years old. What do you know? This is going to be too difficult. When I formed the Institute, I didn't have an idea about we want to create a widget and sell it. But it was that I put up on a whiteboard 8 questions I was really motivated to find insights into. What engenders authentic hope in people? What enables people to engage with other people? What are the kinds of leaders, to your point about leaders, what are the kinds of leaders we need that have trust and credibility? So there are 8 of these questions. How does change really happen as opposed to what we think happens? And people say, well, if you're going to do it, you're only allowed 1 question. I'm like, yeah, but the thing is, these questions, it's the interdependence and the interaction and the dynamic between and among them that actually is what makes society go. And it's what creates meaning and relevance and significance in people's lives. So no, I'm not going to pick just 1 question. That would create the type of fragmentation that I'm trying to get away from. I'm trying to create a sense of wholeness. Now, that goes back to my childhood. I wasn't whole. I was broken. I'm trying to create a sense of wholeness out of fragments and to see whether or not we can create a better path for communities and society to take moving forward, both what I would say now in philosophical terms, but also in deeply practical ways that enable people to come together and get stuff done. So that's what sort of motivated it. Honestly, I set little goals for myself. Like if I'm working by myself in a year, I should rethink this if we're not taking off. And last thing I'll say about this right now is we had a major breakthrough. We were fortuitous to do another mentor helped me with this, a guy named Bob Kingston, who's now passed away. I got connected to a foundation and they funded the first walk across the country that I did, the one I was telling you about.
Yeah.
And when we released
1990?
In 1990, and then it came out eventually in 1991, but the walk was 1990, and it hit big. We have over 10 boxes of clippings, of just clippings. That's a lot of clippings from this. I was on every major news thing. The Wall Street Journal and the New York Times did 3 editorials around it. People picked up the report and started using it to teach at Harvard. I got a letter from the head of the largest newspaper company at the time and the most credible one, Knight Ridder Newspapers, saying, if you're ever in Miami, I want to meet you. I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm now 29 years old. Are you kidding me? I made up an excuse to be in Miami. I told him I'm coming down to Miami. I've got a meeting.
Yeah.
A meeting was with him. So one thing led to another and it just took off. I got lucky.
What do you think people were drawn to? Your curiosity, your seeking of hope, providing of hope? What was it you think that people attached to?
I think, first of all, I was young. I was really young and I was ambitious. Not ambitious, like raw ambition. I wanted to get moving again. I mean, it comes back to that. They saw that I wanted to get moving and that I would do things to make it happen. So that was one thing. But I think what they were attracted to was my sense of possibility and that my desire to try a different path forward and that I was innovating. I didn't pretend to have all the answers. I did say that I thought I had the wherewithal to figure things out or could figure things out over time. And I think people were really attracted to that. And then as we took on more and more work, we became known for this. There was kind of almost a mystique around us at the time. And then people started to approach us with harder and harder challenges. And we hadn't taken those challenges on, but I had enough ingredients that we could combine and recombine and then also create along the way to deal with some of these things. And that's basically what we've been doing for almost 40 years. It's this over and over and over again. We didn't create a single widget that we're trying to sell. We're a nonprofit, but it's that we're on a learning journey.
Yeah.
And we're learning about how society operates. And exactly. So I've written 9 books now. hope is in the title of almost every one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think being open, there's something about leaders. There are different types of leaders, obviously. There are ones that call themselves leaders that maybe I would not call leaders, that are looking for the success. And what you're describing to me is like, this is, you're leading with openness and curiosity to help others, like genuinely help others and create all the things that you mentioned early on. And that's why you're successful. Is, you're not like well, you might be forcing some things, but you're not forcing the meaning, I guess. Like it's intrinsic in all that you're doing.
Yeah, and it hasn't been a cakewalk. I mean, we've changed, as we've sort of evolved and learned certain things. We're like, oh, let's go over here and try some stuff, or let's go over here and try some stuff. And sometimes we're, in essence, almost starting all over again in terms of relationships that could support this work financially. And there have been times when, there was another pivotal, I won't go into this, but only to say, I remember in 2005, I hit a crisis point, and this was another big turning point. And I had to really sort of figure out, like, could this really work? Could I really continue to make a go of this? I'd already been doing it for 15 years at that point. I felt like it was killing me. Could I, which was like a repeat of my childhood. So could I continue? And luckily I came to decide yes, but there was a process involved.
Yeah. Why do you decide to continue? Is it faith? Is it all the pieces? Do you think of young Rich when you're doing these things? Like, what motivates you to do all that every day?
Actually, it's in the Bible. There's the burning bush, and God calls Moses forward, and Moses stuttered. He was deeply fearful. He had a lot of self-doubt. In other words, he was broken. And God says to him, go release the Israelites from the burden of slavery, from the pharaohs. And Moses says, why me? And he wants to hide. And essentially what God says to him is, show your face. This is no time to hide. That I'm asking you to step forward, asking you to be more than you think you can be. In essence, in a sense, imbuing you with a sense of confidence that you don't believe you have. And I'm asking you to account. I'm asking you to account. You have a role to play here. And the bush, to me, some people could say that the burning bush is something to fear, that the fire is raging. And for me, it's not that at all. It's that the fire is burning, that it's alive, that there's a warmth that it gives, that there's a sense of that you can be more than you think you can be, but you're going to need to step forward. You're going to need to show your face. You're going to need to account for yourself. And honestly, Matt, again, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about the burning bush. There are times when I feel defeated, when I feel worn out, when I feel worn down. And my first stop is to close my eyes, look inward, and to see this vivid image of the burning bush.
So it is, I mean, essentially faith keeps you, you've already said that you're deeply connected to your faith, which I think is as much of a reason to move forward as anything else. I think I'm not super religious I don't really ascribe to much of that, but when I do things that fill me up, especially now in my 40s, so much of what I'm doing, I think of that totally lost version of myself that didn't have a hand to hold, metaphorically, didn't have a guide to like if he could see this version of me talking about things that I was so afraid to talk about, or that I made it through that very long dark period, I think of him, and he's the reason that I do these things, which sounds so cheesy, like on the surface when you say it, but and so curious. And it's just like your story is so inspiring that, you fought something that people told you were going to die, or they told your parents you were going to die and you weren't going to live very long. They called you names. They put you through horrible things. And here you are, maybe not as scarred as some may be, and using those scars to help other people. And it's really commendable, because there's so many times in your life that I think you could have folded and nobody would have blamed you for it. Not one person.
Yeah. But the other thing I think about, to your point, is think about all the people I met in Flint, Michigan when I was working there after they lost 30,000 jobs, and they kept getting up and stepping forward, and they had this sense of hope that was just remarkable. Or the people in Newtown who kept going after the massacre there. They lost 20 first graders. So everyone in that town of 20,000 people was touched by this. So honestly, those people, all these people, I find so inspiring. Honestly, they're life-giving. It's quite remarkable what people do.
You probably see this a lot in your years of doing this work, is like the human spirit is like way more resilient than we ever could give it credit for. Like, I've talked to so many people about moments that I would never wish on my worst enemy, of the things that they've gone through. And somehow 10, 15 years later, they're this version of you. Like the things in the moment where you're like, how do I just wake up tomorrow and do this all over again? And here you are doing all this thing, creating these ripple effects for the world in a time when, if, in my opinion, need it more than ever to create these communities and realize that even though we have different upbringings, different stories, different things that have happened to us, there's so much more that we can relate to with each other than there is that separates us. So, I mean, thank you for what you're doing for the world.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. You told me before we started, this is episode, was it 258? Something like that. Is that right? So that's amazing. And think of all the people who listen to this because of the conversations that you're generating and the space that, I've done a lot of podcasts at this point. You create a really special space, and I know I'm grateful for it. And I'm sure that your listeners are grateful for it. And I'm sure the 258 people who are guests alone, if you just think about that, all that they each individually got from talking with you is really wonderful.
Well, I appreciate that. I say this without any joking. Each conversation that I get the opportunity to have heals a little part of me that I didn't know needed it. You're like, oh, that hit. So I love to kind of wrap up these conversations with a question. And I'm thinking of the rich who was counting the seconds, the second hand, and the minutes through every night. And there's something that 2026 Rich could wake him up at, or pull him out of his trance at 4:19 one morning. What would you say to him about this journey he was about to go on?
About the journey? First, I think when you ask that, I think what I would say to him is, I love you.
That's what you needed.
Yeah.
Reminder. Yeah. If only we had, when we were the young age, the voice to express what we needed and wanted and would, and the understanding maybe of what we needed and wanted. We might not have figured that out, but I hope that people now are modeling more of that. I'm sure you did that with your children. You did that, or you're going to do that with your grandchildren, and spoil them as well, maybe more than you did your own kids, as you should as a grandparent. But, I think the awareness part is like, I wish I had that awareness. I'm sure you wish you had some of that awareness as well, but it wouldn't have made us this version if we had it then.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, or important that you say that. I don't know if you feel this way. I would not, if you told me I could change certain things in my life, but I wouldn't be who I am today, and I wouldn't be doing what I am today, And in order to be who I am and do what I'm doing, I would have to endure the pain that I did. I would say, okay, let's go through it again.
Yep. The hardest thing, that's a really hard thing to say. It's a really hard thing. I've had that wrestling of saying it out loud because I never would want my mom to die. But also, I wouldn't have learned all the things that I learned in this way and be this version of myself. So I probably wouldn't jump in the DeLorean as much as I would want to, but you know, it's a really hard thing to say out loud, but it is really important that we realize that all the things, all the decisions, good, bad, indifferent, that we've made bring us to this version of ourselves. And you know, we should embrace that if we feel like we're aligned with what we want to do. And it feels like you're very aligned with what you want to do. For the last 40 years, you've been putting in the care and the work. If people want to learn more about like your institute or the 700 books that you've written, like what's the best way to find you? Can they reach out to you and tell you their story? Like what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, 2 concrete steps people can take. One is they can go to our website, theharwoodinstitute.org, all one word. There's stuff there. There's resources. There's things people can attend for free. We have a virtual event. We have virtual events all the time, so people don't have to leave their home. I come to communities and speak all the time. So go to the website. That's one. On the website, there's an email that you can click on and send us an email. And if you, in the email or in the subject line, say message to Rich and then say, hi, Rich, and write me a note or tell me your story, even though it's a general mailbox, it does all those emails, each of those emails do get to me, and I read every single one, and I try to reply to as many as I possibly can.
Yeah, I love that. I like to encourage the listeners, because I think there are a lot of listeners out there that we all have stories, but they haven't shared their story. And if there's some kind of little fire burning in you that something Rich said or something that in our conversation sparked something in you and you want to tell your story, or how it resonated with you, or how Rich's story resonated with you, reach out to any of us. Just tell someone your story. There's so much power in it. I feel like things in my head are much messier and scarier than when I put them out of my mouth or on paper or something like that. And so I encourage people to just use the power of storytelling to propel us forward, because it's how we make connections. It's how we understand each other, is through story.
Yeah, great.
Well, I appreciate you. I encourage everyone to look in the show notes. I'll give them direct links to everything so that they can get to you. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of this and going down whatever roads we went down as part of your story.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I'm grateful for the chance to talk with you and to be able to do this together.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I will be back next week with a brand new episode. And that's all. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Life Shift Podcast. If you want to learn more, go to www.thelifeshiftpodcast.com. There you can check out all the different episodes. You can check out the blog, some of the reviews for the podcast, and the Life Shift Journal. Links are there so you can purchase your own copy, whether in digital or print format. Thanks again.
Hi, everyone. I'm 2-time World Cup winner for the U.S. Women's National Team, Julie Ertz.
And I'm former NWSL star Kaylia Watt. Welcome to Style of Play.
From the U.S. Women's National Team to the global stage, we're talking to stars on the pitch and special guests from across all sports and entertainment. We're also getting real about life after the game, motherhood, and what it's like raising kids in a 2-pro athlete home.
Make sure to follow us on social at Style of Play Show and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You ready, Kay?
Let's go.